The wanted poster used no name, just a face, charcoal lines on yellowed paper, sharp eyes, a mouth that had stopped explaining itself a long time ago. The reward was $500, more than most men in Crockett County would earn in a year. The crime listed was a single word: murder. The woman who posted it rode away without leaving her own name either, because the sheriff hadn't caught her. The posse hadn't caught her. The two deputies sent east into the canyon country came back sunburned and empty-handed, and didn't make eye contact when they reported in. Nobody caught her. Nobody except a grief-hollowed woman from New Mexico territory, who rode north with no badge, no weapon drawn, and one question she needed answered before she could sleep again. Edna Mae Brooks started with 40 acres, a dead husband, and a frontier that did not care whether she survived. She survived anyway, and then she kept going. By 1901, she controlled more land in Crockett County than any man breathing. She had riders, she had lawyers, she had a way of making an offer feel like a warning, without ever raising her voice. Families who had broken their backs on their land for 20 years signed it away at her kitchen table, because the alternative was something nobody said out loud, but everyone understood. Two men had tried the alternative. They were found in separate dry creek beds in separate seasons. The inquest both times returned the same verdict: misadventure. Mama Brooke attended neither funeral. She was not that kind of woman. She was the kind of woman who looked at the frontier and saw not hardship but inventory, and spent the better part of a decade converting one into the other. People feared her the way they feared drought, not because they hated her, because fighting weather is a fool's errand, until the woman with no name on the poster stopped believing that. She arrived in Crockett County on a gray morning in February, riding a buckskin mule and carrying one saddlebag and no explanations. The Delacroix family hired her on because Henri Delacroix was old. His daughter Celine could not work the fence line alone, and the woman called Wren asked for wages so modest it almost seemed like she had another reason for being there entirely. She did. She had lost land herself once. Different county, different woman's name on the deed afterward. She had been 17, and there was nothing she could do but watch her mother cry at a kitchen table that no longer belonged to them. She was 26 now. She had spent 9 years moving through the territory, watching the same machine run in different towns with different faces, watching families fold, watching the law look the other way, watching the men who were supposed to stop at file paperwork that went nowhere while the land changed hands and the families disappeared into the margins of someone else's map. She was tired of watching. When Mama Brooks' riders came to the Delacroix place on a cold Tuesday in October and lit the east fence line on fire as a reminder that the offer was still open, Wren was the one who rode out to meet them. When the one called Daltrey raised his rifle at Henri Delacroix, 71 years old, standing in front of his own barn, Wren stepped her mule between them. Mama Brooke was there that day. She liked to be there. She said it was good business to show your face. She sat her horse at the tree line and watched with the calm of a woman watching cattle sorted at a pen. What happened in the next 60 seconds? 3 witnesses described 3 different ways. What no one disputed. When the dust settled, Edna Mae Brooks was on the ground. Wren was gone. The Delacroix land was still standing, and by nightfall the wanted poster was nailed to the wall of the sheriff's office, with that charcoal face staring out at anyone who walked through the door. $500. Armed. Dangerous. Do not approach alone. Ruth Brooks found out about her sister the way you find out about things you have been half expecting for years, in a letter that arrives on an ordinary morning and makes the ordinary morning impossible. She read it at her kitchen table in Las Cruces. She read it again. She set it down and looked out the window at her garden and waited for the grief to arrive in full. It came, but it was complicated grief. the kind that has too many rooms in it. She had loved Edna once, the Edna who existed before the land hunger took over, before her sister had learned that the frontier would give you whatever you were willing to take, and had decided that the answer to that was everything. Ruth had tried to reach that Edna for years, had ridden out to see her, written letters, sent word through cousins, had been told, gently, and then not so gently, that sentiment was for women who couldn't survive without it. Ruth had survived just fine. She just hadn't needed to become something else to do it. She folded the letter. She looked at her garden for a long tea. She was a plain woman with tired eyes and a direct manner, and people answered her in the way they answer someone who is clearly not looking for trouble. Honestly, and with the small human details that matter. On the third day she stopped at a homestead called the Vasquez place. An old woman came to the porch and looked at Ruth the way old women on the frontier look at strangers, measuring, unhurried, deciding. Ruth told her she was looking for the woman on the poster. The old woman was quiet for a moment. Then she went inside and came back with a tin cup of water and handed it to Ruth, without a word. Ruth drank it. She looked at the old woman. "You know where she is," the old woman said. "I know what she did for my son's family, 2 counties over, before she came here." Ruth set the cup down on the porch rail. What did she do? Stop the same thing from happening to them that happened to everyone here. The old woman looked out at the flat, dry land stretching west. There are women in this territory who survive by becoming hard, and there are women who survive by becoming something else. She looked back at Ruth. "Which one was your sister?" Ruth didn't answer. She already knew. She rode east toward the canyon country with that question sitting in her chest, next to the stone that had been there since Las Cruces. She learned that the families along those trails left water on their fence posts at night. Not for themselves, for Wren. A quiet offering, the kind you leave for someone doing work you don't have the words to thank them for. The wanted poster said murderer. The fence post water said something different entirely. She rode on. Wren had been watching Ruth track her for 2 days before she decided to stop moving. She had watched her ride into Alado's store and come out knowing something. Watched her at the Vasquez homestead, talking to the old woman on the porch, both of them still for a long time. Watched her at the dry wash crossing, crouched down, reading the ground. She was good, not trained good, paying attention good. The kind of tracking that comes from understanding how a person thinks rather than which way the boot prints go. Wren recognized it because she did it herself. On the 5th evening, she rode to the canyon overlook and sat on a flat boulder and waited. The sun stretched red across the rock faces. A hawk turned slow circles below the rim. Ruth rode up 20 minutes later. She stopped her horse. She looked at Wren. She looked at the hand near the pistol. She dismounted, looped her reins around a dead cedar post, and walked to the other boulder and sat down. The canyon dropped away below them, full of shadow and old silence. Wren said, "You have her eyes," Ruth said. "People keep telling me that, like it means something." A pause. Ruth said, "I'm not here to bring you in." "I know," Wren said. "You didn't come with anyone. You're not holding a rifle. You rode up in the open. Then why do you think I came?" Wren looked at her. "Because you need to know if she was worth grieving." Ruth didn't answer right away. The hawk below them caught a thermal and rose without moving its wings. "Tell me what she did," Ruth said. Wren told her. She told her about the Delacroix family, the fence line fire, and the 71-year-old man with a rifle aimed at his chest in front of his own barn. She told her about Mama Brooke sitting her horse at the tree line, calm as a woman at a church social, watching it happen. She told her about the 2 men in the dry creek beds. She told her about her own family's land, signed away at a table under conditions that were never quite threats and never quite anything else. She told her all of it in a flat, dry voice, not performing, not asking for anything, just laying the truth between them like something that had been too heavy to carry alone for too long. Ruth listened without speaking. The light finished dying. Stars appeared one by one, the way they do in canyon country, suddenly and in number, as if they had been waiting for the dark to give them permission. When Wren finished, Ruth was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "She was my sister. I loved who she was before she became what she became. I don't know how much of that woman was real." Wren said nothing. "The man with the rifle," Ruth said. "Daltrey." "Yeah." Henri Delacroix's daughter was inside the house. "She was 8 years old," Wren said. "She was watching from the window." Ruth closed her eyes. The wind moved through the canyon below them, making that low, hollow sound canyon wind makes, like the land breathing. She opened her eyes, looked at the stars. "She deserved it," Ruth said. Quiet, final, like setting something down she had been carrying since Las Cruces. Ruth rode back to the sheriff's office 4 days later. She told him she had tracked the suspect east into the canyon country and lost her in the terrain. She returned the advance money he had sent her and said she had nothing more to report. The sheriff looked at her, the way men look at women when they know they're being handled and can't prove it. Ruth looked back with her sister's eyes and said nothing else. The poster stayed on the wall for 2 more years. Nobody collected the $500. No deputy found the trail. The woman with no name aged off the board eventually, replaced by other faces, other crimes, the frontier moving on the way it always does, grinding forward, forgetting what it leaves behind. The Delacroix family kept their land. So did the 2 homesteads east of the county line where Wren had spent her weeks after the shooting, making sure Mama Brooks' remaining riders understood that the arrangement was over. Wren was seen once more. A small town in New Mexico territory, 8 months after the canyon, buying flour and salt at a dry goods store, asking the storekeeper about land available farther west. Cheap land, the kind a person could actually build something on. He remembered her because she was quiet and paid exact change and said thank you like she meant it. He did not know she was wanted. He described her to his wife that evening as a steady kind of woman, the kind you'd want for a neighbor, the kind the frontier kept trying to break and kept failing to. The poster had no name, only a face, and the face looked back at everyone who saw it with the same expression, not guilt, not defiance, just the particular tiredness of a woman who had watched the machine run long enough and finally decided that someone had to be the one to reach in and stop the gears. Ruth Brooks went home to Las Cruces. She tended her garden. She did not speak about what she had found in the canyon country, but she slept better than she had in years.